So let me just make a couple comments, and then I'll try to answer any questions that you might have. But let me start by saying, and I appreciate that some of you I did not see earlier today out at the co-location, so I made some comments out there. A number of you were here at City Hall, so I didn't get a chance to talk to you, so I appreciate you adjusting your schedules and seeing us late this afternoon. And again, sorry to hold you up. You know, there's certainly been, over the past couple weeks or so, a fair amount of conversation or discussion, in some instances, some distraction about what level of support the city government and the citizens and taxpayers and business owners of this city have made with regard to funding the education of our children. And so again, I'll give you a handout that lays out what that support has been, at least during my time as the mayor of this city. And we've sent up any number of pieces of legislation to City Council, a number of which have been approved. And certainly if you are either a property owner or a business person, and in some instances both a property owner and business person, you have certainly in that capacity felt the impact of the city's support for public education, and more importantly for funding of our children's education. Again, all of you have written stories on numerous occasions about the two property tax increases that were approved out of FY11 and FY12. All of those funds, the portion that goes, of course, to the school district went to the district. Use and occupancy tax was raised as well. Parking fees and fines were raised as well. All of which went through and supported the district to the tune of $155 million. $155 million in new funding for education for the children here in Philadelphia. At the same time, that state funding decreased by $140 million. From that point in time through FY18, which is the end of the current 5-year plan, that funding that has been approved represents more than $1 billion in funding for education here in Philadelphia. And so again, any talk or conversation about lack of support from the city government, and whether it's our administration or city council, is completely without merit. In addition, there have been other measures that have been sent up to City Council, and some have not moved through the process or not been approved, but those separately represent $1.1 billion in funding from the time they were sent up and would generate through the current 5-year plan. And so the significant amount of increased support for funding the education of children here in Philadelphia is unquestioned. And as I mentioned, when we conclude, I'll be glad to give you the documented sheets. But for the last few years, $155 million in additional funding for education at the same time that the state has been making cuts that have hurt the education of our children. And so when you get into these kinds of distracting discussions and information that's being sent around primarily by the National Education Organization and a Chicago political firm, leaving out the record that's been going on here in Philadelphia. It's just a tragedy that a week before the conclusion of not only the POT contract, but a number of other school district union contracts at the end of this month and another one next month, takes away from the main issues at hand, which really are about how do we best support our students in school, how do we best fund education, and also get the resources that are needed, both from a funding standpoint as well as an operational or management standpoint. And so, as I said earlier, there's not a 3rd grader, 8th grader, or an 11th grader in this city who's talking about many of the things that are either in print, on the radio, on TV, or on the internet. What they're focused on is schools opening on time and safely on September 9th. What they're focused on is who's going to be my history teacher, what's homeroom going to be like, when's recess, and how am I going to learn, and then what time do we leave and then come back tomorrow for more education. The fact of the matter is that there are desperately needed reforms and changes that need to be made. Many are economic and will help us save money. Those savings will actually bring more teachers, more counselors, more noontime aides or school aides back to school, as Dr. Height is in the process of doing, based on the commitment made in this building on August 15th by both myself and Council President Clark that schools would open on time and safely on September 9th. And that day and into the next day, that Thursday and Friday, Dr. Height and his team started a process of bringing back about 1,000 people of the 3,800 who had been laid off. One of the issues that's under discussion is the fact that in bringing back those staff, how are they brought back? Under the current system, based on how long you've been with the district and a variety of other fairly complex rules and regulations, Dr. Height has made the decision, and I support this decision, and it's the right decision for kids, that he will bring back to the greatest extent he can those personnel who were in those schools with those children who were laid off. And that's really about how you best manage the workforce, putting the right people in the right place under the right circumstances, as opposed to bringing back people in a haphazard fashion who have not worked in that school the previous year, who did not work with those students the previous year, who don't know the school building and don't know those children. No one's been able to explain to me why that system is better for children. Or in the hiring process, that we empower principals and parents to have input, when we talk about site selection, input into which teachers are teaching which children at what schools. And again, empowering principals and parents, another idea that Dr. Height has put forward and is fighting for, which is again a component of what's being discussed at the contract table. Or the fact that virtually everyone who works in this building and all throughout our city government pay something for their health care. Teachers Union leadership believes that no one should pay for health care if you're a worker over at, a union worker over at the school district. About 90% of teachers all across the United States of America, virtually every school district around the city of Philadelphia, the teachers pay something for their health care. And the issue here is not only that it helps to reduce costs, but equally, if not more important, those savings would go into bringing more people back into schools to serve the best interests of students. So again, no one's been able to make an argument that made any sense to me as to why this particular group of employees should pay zero for their health care in an environment where, of course, health care costs are growing, and that is a growing pressure for the school district of Philadelphia. And so, I mean, those are the facts, those are the issues, and again, less than a week before contract expiration, if someone had said to me last year that a week before the contract's expiring, that there are virtually no stories or no commentary or no discussion about what the true issues are at the table, as opposed to this distracting conversation about who's supporting education or who's not supporting education. There's been a lot of support. The taxpayers of this city and the citizens of this city have given time and time and time again. Virtually every time we've asked them for something, they've put something on the table. Students clearly have given up a whole lot because of things that they are not receiving, and their parents as well. The business community has given, at least one other union at the school district has given, and certainly everyone has to put something on the table to help in a crisis situation. But this city government, and more importantly, people who pay the bills around here, the citizens and taxpayers of this city, they have certainly felt the effects of efforts to put more funding into the education of our children because they know and they've seen your reports about all the times over the past few years that we have in fact raised their taxes to support education. More needs to be done certainly at the state level. We clearly need a new funding formula that is student weighted based on the number of students, the cost, the true cost of funding education, special education, and certainly the challenges for students who English is not their first language. And that is the responsibility of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Governor Corbett and his team, and the members of the General Assembly. We need a true funding formula for education in Pennsylvania, like 47 other states all across the country. Pennsylvania is one of only 3 states in America that does not use a student-weighted formula to fund education. We still have matters up at the state that we need them to pass. No one's been able to explain why the cigarette tax, which went through City Council 16 to nothing, why anyone anywhere else in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania should care as to whether or not the citizens of this city wish to increase, again, funding for their own school district by passing a cigarette tax that the legislative body has already overwhelmingly approved, and we just need a vote by the General Assembly. And lastly, certainly, without getting into this particular debate at the moment, and there's, again, a lot of agreement about this, but we were given the authority the following year, the next fiscal year, to have $120 million of additional funding for schools in Philadelphia based on extension of the sales tax. And again, it's obviously an issue that we're working through here in the building, but that opportunity is in front of us. And on behalf of the children of this city, we should certainly take advantage of that funding, additional funding, which will generate $600 million in funding for education over the next 5 years. So, I mean, that's a story. Let's stay focused on the real issues. Children going to school on time and safely on September 9th, getting these contract issues resolved, getting savings that are needed, and operational changes that work in the best interest of children. So with that, I'll try to answer a few questions that you have, and I'll give out the documents when we get done.
So, Mr. Mayor, how do you feel about these ads then running against you, saying that you sided with Corbett on the funding situation?
You know, as I mentioned earlier, they're a distraction. I mean, they're very nice, well produced by a Chicago political consulting firm, carrying forward an agenda by the national teachers organization that has really nothing to do with our efforts to support our children here. This is about adult issues in business. The issues that we should be talking about are the things that we said, and the record, all of these are documented pieces of information that I laid out here this afternoon. And, you know, it's a part of a planned distraction campaign that gets all of you talking about that, and not talking about how we select teachers to be in classrooms, how we bring back folks to fill vacancies, whether or not folks should pay something for their health care, and how you deal with all of those issues. And this entire planned activity is solely for that distraction. I'm not getting distracted by that. I'm focused on what's in the best interest of children. There are many other people in this building who feel the same, and I'm not going to waste my time talking about that.
And do you feel like the union should be doing more? They keep pointing fingers at everyone else, but is the union doing enough, you feel, to, you know, do their part?
Give me a little more definition.
Well, in other
to the
words,
question.
the district has been asking for $130 million in concessions from the union.
Right.
The union says
Savings.
absolutely not.
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, other than their constant request that everyone should do more, apparently, except them, there is no rational explanation as to why, as a group, they should not pay something for their health care. As I said, like virtually everyone else who works in this building, I assume many of you do, all the teachers in the districts around us do, and there is no explanation that I've been able to hear that says why that is the case. And so teachers do a lot of things. They teach our children, many of whom spend money out of their own pocket for supplies and the things that they need in the classroom. I respect teachers. I love teachers. And there's not a person in the United States of America who A, hasn't had a great teacher in the course of their time, and B, more than likely wouldn't be who they are without a great teacher in front of their classroom. This is really about a leadership that is focused on a national agenda on many of these issues that unfortunately filter down and negatively affect the quality of education for our children. Some amount of savings, from payments on health care to how much people get paid, et cetera, those savings under Dr. Height's plan, get plowed right back into the district and actually bring back some of their fellow teachers, some of their noontime aides, some of the folks who are counselors, and that is for the benefit of students. And so I think the real issue here is, when does the point come where all the adults say, we have to work together and do what's in the best interest of our children and their future, as opposed to solely focusing primarily on their own adult issues that in many instances have nothing to do with kids.
Mr. Mayor,
One or two last questions.
what's your feedback been like when you're in Harrisburg and you're talking to state legislators that aren't even in the Philadelphia area? How sympathetic are they to Philadelphia's plight here?
Well, it's interesting. One, there is, we always have very open and direct conversations, I do, with members of the General Assembly, whether they're in leadership or not, and the governor directly. And I've said any number of things to Governor Corbett directly in terms of what we should be doing about education. You haven't seen them on TV, and you've not read them in a newspaper or heard them on the radio, because those are my private conversations with him or other leaders. The fact of the matter is that Philadelphia is not alone in its call for additional funding for education across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Here are a few other facts. 75% of the school districts in the state of Pennsylvania, there are 500 of them, 75% of them have had to raise taxes to fund education in their school districts because of cuts by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Today, as we're standing here, there are at least a dozen school districts that are in some level of financial distress, and by next year, that number will be 25. Many of those schools are located in districts represented by folks who happen to be of the Republican Party. I think that funding for education should not be a partisan issue. It should be a bipartisan issue, looking out for the benefits of the entire state. And whether you're parents or a D or an R or an I or whatever else they may be, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, under our Constitution, has a requirement to provide a thorough and efficient education for school students in Pennsylvania. So my discussion has been multifaceted. One, what's going on right now? We need the funding. We went up asking for one set of funding. They gave us some other tools, and again, you've heard me say this before, whether we like those tools or not, they are the ones that we have. But as soon as they are back in session, I will certainly be back up there. So, I mean, it's a long answer to your question. The reception is an open one. They understand the challenge. The issue is whether or not the General Assembly and the governor are prepared to spend more funding on educating students, which I believe is in the overall economic interest of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I mean, beyond the moral issue of whether we put more money forward, it's in the economic interest. It boosts the educational attainment across the state. It makes us a smarter state. It makes us a more attractive place for business and commerce, et cetera, et cetera. And so this is about politics and the political will. And we should spend a little less time focused on, did the budget get passed on time, or did we stay within a certain spending number, but actually have a full funding formula for all 500 school districts across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that gets added to by the local effort for whatever the local governments can do, but not be so constrained by political dogma and doctrine, and listening to folks like Grover Norquist, who seem to have an inordinate influence on whether or not you provide additional funding for certain things. Education should be one of those items that is off of any of those political tables and is always ready for discussion for funding.
But you've asked, there've been rallies. I mean, what do you do now to keep it from
You
not being
continue to
here
fight,
again?
and we have 30 plus folks who represent us in Harrisburg as well. And I think that the leadership that Chairwoman Cheryl Parker on the Philly House delegation side, and State Senator Chairwoman Shirley Kitchen, who leads our Pennsylvania Senate, Philly Senate delegation, they will continue to fight and be champions. But we are one of 500 school districts, one of 67 counties in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And so I think that rallying with our nearby school districts, rallying with our nearby legislators here in southeastern Pennsylvania, 5 counties, Philly, Bucks, Chester, Delaware, Montgomery County, represent 40% of the economy of the entire state of Pennsylvania. But this has to be a statewide coalition of educators and parents and students and the clergy and the community and certainly the business community, all weighing in and focused on the issue of, we want full funding for education across the Commonwealth. And given the size of this school district, nearly 200,000 students, clearly we are overwhelmingly the largest. Next largest school district in Pennsylvania is Pittsburgh at about 28,000 students. We would be a beneficiary of the kind of formula you see in many other states across the United States of America if we had an actual funding formula for education in Pennsylvania. Last question.
Can we get those papers, Mr. Mayor? The copies you talked about?
I'm going to give everyone else one, Dan, none for you. You just haven't been good.
Can I ask
And-